Hello and welcome. I'm Harriet Agbini. Tonight, Dr. Ayuba Waba emerges new president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, promises to lead union to greater heights. NLC faction disagrees with the outcome of union election, plans to hold another delegates conference in Lagos next Saturday. Residents discuss ways to end frequent violence in Rivers State ahead of the general elections. And Cyclone Pam wreaks havoc on the island of Vanuatu. On business news, interbank lending rates more than doubles at the end of the week as bank accounts are debited from premium payments to the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation.
Sports news, Egypt's Omar Assar outclasses Nigeria's Aruna Quadri to win the IWTF World Tour for a second consecutive year.
We begin in the nation's capital, Abuja, where Comrade Ayuba Waba of the Medical and Health Workers Union has emerged president of the Nigeria Labour Congress after an election that lasted for 2 days. Comrade Ayuba was declared winner of the election amidst protests from his opponent, Comrade Joe Ajero, in the keenly contested election which began on Thursday. Former General Secretary of the NLC, Dangiwa Aliyu, who was the returning officer, announced that Comrade Ayuba polled 1,695 votes to defeat Joe Ajero of the National Union of Electricity Employees, who polled 1,200 votes. A total of 3,119 delegates took part in the election.
Over 3,000 delegates representing 50 workers' unions across the country reconvened on Thursday at the Eagle Square to elect new leaders of the workers' union. After about 48 hours, Comrade Ayuba Waba of the Medical and Health Workers Union was declared winner of the presidential election.
Ayuba Waba, he scored 1,695 votes, and he stands the winner of this election for this position of President of the Congress within the next term of 4 years, inshallah.
This declaration was, however, greeted with protests following alleged irregularities by some key contestants.
You have a Dangiwa, you have a Fege, and another Abdulwahid Omar supervising the same process. That is unacceptable. And in the whole process of this election, Abdulwahid Omar, who is sorting out votes there now, is not wanted. He is the cause of all that is happening in the labor movement today.
From the south-south, no delegates. From the southwest, no delegates. From the southeast or from the east, no delegates. And you say those who came to vote are those who are also paying the affiliate checkup dues from these various states. The answer is no. And we must tell Nigerians the truth. Today, as we speak, by tomorrow you will hear the next line of actions we're going to take.
Victory!
But neither of these protests stopped the president-elect from making his acceptance speech.
Whatever you are putting today shall not be in vain. Amen. It shall be the beginning of good things for Nigerian workers. Amen. It should be the beginning of progress. Amen. And together we'll be able to build a labor movement that is first of its kind in Africa, and that can compete with all labor centers across the world.
For now, the 11th delegate conference of the NLC appears to have come to an end, but definitely with more agitations expected from aggrieved members.
Now, a new president of the Nigeria Labour Congress may have been announced, but it appears the crisis in the Congress is far from over, as a faction of the Workers' Union is set to form a parallel Labour leadership. Workers from 23 unions, including the Electricity Workers Union, Nigerian Textile Workers Union, and NUPENG, are among those opposed to the results of the election that declared Ayuba Waba president of the Workers Union. The leadership of the aggrieved unions say they have fixed next Saturday for another delegate conference in Lagos, which will produce another leadership for the workers.
The reconvened Nigeria Labour Congress delegates election at the Eagle Square was expected to lay to rest the crisis that trailed last month's Congress, which failed to produce new leadership for the NLC. Less than 24 hours after the Congress announced the names of the new NLC leadership, members of 23 workers' unions, including some contestants, have rejected the outcome of the Congress.
I am the rightful winner of that election. If there was any of you who monitored that election the whole of yesterday, even my opponents were congratulating me before what happened later. So I remain the authentic president of the Nigerian Labour Congress.
The same NLC did elections for, to produce Comrade Adam Soshomole. The same NLC had done it for Umar until he becomes a counterfeit and a renegade president will ever produce. No politicians in our histories has ever controlled our movement. We have survived military rule, we survived civilian rule, we survived future government.
The group has also fixed a new date for another Congress for next week Saturday in Lagos. This Congress is expected to elect a parallel leadership for the NLC.
The unions you are seeing here, and very many unions, we are organizing a special delegates conference of the Nigerian Labour Congress. What is next Saturday? Next week Saturday. In Lagos, on Saturday next week, arrival date is Friday. Special delegates conference in the sense that every union will have the mandate to get equal number of delegates, 10 delegates. Unlike the one that is manipulated, where some unions were given, had more delegates more than others.
The 11th Delegates Conference ended up in a deadlock last month. Although a new leadership was declared in the early hours of Saturday, March 14, reactions from these members show that there is no end in sight for the crisis in the NLC.
Well, to discuss this fallout of the NLC election, I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by a legal practitioner, Mr. Wahab Shitu. Mr. Shitu, thank you so much for joining me on the news at 10.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, the first delegates conference of the NLC last month ended in chaos, and the House seems to be divided now more than even at that time. What do you make of the controversies that have actually characterized this election of of NLC's new national executives?
I must say that this crisis is really unfortunate because the country cannot afford a divided labor union. The Central Union, the Nigerian Labour Congress, ought to be cohesive, ought to be united, to be able to face the challenges facing the Nigerian worker, and to be able to also deepen the democratic process. So what is happening now is not something that is salutary at all. It is something that is very sad, unfortunate, and that should make all lovers of the democratic process to be very, very sad. A house divided against itself cannot stand. We need a labor union that is cohesive, that is united, and that can champion the cause of the average Nigerian worker with determination and from a united perspective. So what is going on is really unfortunate.
And so, still looking at the fact that the labor union should be versed in dispute resolution to be able to settle their differences, it seems as if what we're seeing now is totally at variance to that.
Yes, but you cannot just look at this issue from the perspective of the labor union alone. It's a reflection of the general decay in the society. So perhaps what we require is a code of ethical political conduct that will recognize certain, fundamental principles. And this, I'm looking at the bigger picture now, because what you see now is a crisis in Nigerian Labour Congress. And then what I'm trying to suggest is that we should not, discuss that issue in isolation of what is happening in the rest of Nigerian society. So what that tells you is that we need a society that will be founded on the principles of social justice, the principles of rule of law, the principles of respect for constitutionalism. A society that will respect accord the maximum respect to transparency and accountability.
But this is what the Labour Congress has continuously preached in the last couple of years.
That's the point I'm trying to make. The Nigerian Labour Congress that we all know is one that stands for all of these principles. That is acknowledged locally and internationally for respect for constitutionalism, respect for the rule of law, respect for due process, transparency and accountability, free, fair and credible election in choosing officials. So that what emerges out of such a process is a credible process that will be able to challenge, give direction to the rest of the Nigerian society. So what is happening now is really sad in that it shows that generally the Nigerian Labour Congress is not also immune from the general decay that we witness in the rest of the society.
Which is also that they cannot readily accept defeat when it comes.
Yes, and that betrays the fundamental principles of democracy. In a democracy, winners ought to be magnanimous in victory, while losers should learn to accept defeat in good faith. But there's a caveat to that. Before winners, you will be required to be magnanimous in victory, and losers accept, results in good faith. There must be free, fair, and credible electoral process. The process that emerges must be transparent. All those who are involved must play according to the rules. So where the rule of law is subverted, I'm not saying this is the situation there, where the credibility of the process itself is doubted, is doubtful, then people will not be expected, to accept the outcome. So I think the challenge is that, and the political class must also draw a lesson from this, is to ensure that our elections are free, fair, credible, transparent, and peaceful. Because that is the only way that you can ensure that those who emerge from the process will derive or be accorded legitimacy.
So how does this now affect the worker? Because the NLC is the body that is supposed to represent the interest of the worker, but it itself is in crisis. So how does this begin to affect the Nigerian worker?
Of course, it's going to affect the voice, the cohesiveness of the Nigerian worker. The Nigerian worker is supposed to have an umbrella that will be united sufficiently enough to protect its interests. So where that umbrella is divided or factionalized, it weakens the bargaining power of the Nigerian worker. And it's not something that ought to be celebrated. It's something that calls for sadness from all of us. And because they are supposed to provide leadership. If you look at the antecedents of the Nigerian Labour Congress, before now, it used to be very inspiring and credible. They collaborate most of the time with the civil society organizations, in deepening our democracy, in ensuring that the rights of the Nigerian workers are, fought for and protected. So when the Nigerian Labour Congress that is supposed to achieve all of these objectives is in crisis, it should make you and I feel very sad. And I think it portends, very ominous signs for the polity.
Mr.
And I think that the political class must, draw useful lessons from this crisis.
Mr. Shitu, I'd like to thank you very much for joining me on the News at 10.
Thank you for inviting me.
Mr. Wahab Shitu is a legal practitioner. Join me on the News at 10 to take a look at the fallout of the NLC election. In part 2, after the break, Nigerians in the United States rally efforts towards successful polls in Nigeria. Please stay with us.